Hello, wrestling fans. You're listening to the Wrestling Fans Insight Sunday Takedown. I am your host, John Hoppe, and I am doing a pre recorded episode today to honor a fellow legend who unfortunately passed away Monday, August 26th. For longtime wrestling fans of I would say, mid to late 80s up until probably the end of WCW. Many of you remember this man, mostly for his WWF and WCW ring names under Sid Justice, Sid Vicious, and also Sycho Sid. Um, it was a very bummer deal finding this out, especially knowing that this is a guy who's earned a spot to be in many wrestling Hall of Fames, especially the WWE. And I find it weird that literally just moments, probably not exact moments, but I would say within the month or two just before he passed away, that he made a case for him to be put into the Hall of Fame. And unfortunately, he's not going to be able to live that. But as wrestling fans, hopefully in 2025, maybe the WWE will see that now is the time to put Sid in a spot that is very well deserved to him. Um, but going forward, today I want to take the time to celebrate the career of Sid. I had I had quite a bit of sources from my team on what to bring up and whatnot. Unfortunately, I don't know if I could have really used all of it, but I did take some of it into consideration when I decided to create this recording today. Um, but nonetheless, let's kind of start off with where maybe you first saw Sid if you followed his career in its entirety. I believe he started out in, I wanted to say it was me- it was either Continental Championship Wrestling or I believe that's where it was. But he first wrestled. I want to say his first recognizable might have been under Lord Humongous under the Continental Championship Wrestling brand. Um, And then I believe he also formed a team with Shane Douglas, uh, which I believe they ended up winning the NWA Southeastern Tag Team Championships back then. Those were probably some early memories many of you hardcore wrestling fans remember. But I'm kind of going to dig more into when I first noticed Sid, which was in WCW. He was in a tag team with Dangerous Dan Spivey, managed by Theodore Long, known as the Skyscrapers. And as we learned, Theodore Long was the manager of the group at the time. He didn't feel that he could keep working with Sid. And then we saw kind of the weird transition where Sid went from the Skyscrapers to being a member of the Four Horsemen. And we also knew back then, you know, Sid Sid could play a very dangerous character. He had the physique and the looks of a champion, but as some people know, Sid wasn't always the best with his promos. And I think today on this episode, I'm going to kind of start off with showing how human we all can be. Uh, as many of you know, we've seen a few bloopers of Sid's promo skills live. But I want to kind of dig into the first one that was very noticeable to me, and that was where he had a moment with um, when he was part of the $1 million corporation stable in the WWF then at In Your House, getting ready, I believe, to wrestle Diesel, also known as Kevin Nash, at In Your House for the WWF Championship. But this just goes to show that we're all human, and this kind of made my number 10 moment for Sid's career. Oh,
When this man walks in that ring tonight and walks out with that belt, I will have, in fact, bought the title because he works for me.
Sid, I've got a question for you. We all know that you can bring the heavy offense, but there are a lot of skeptics that think that perhaps you can't take it, that you can't take the punishment that Diesel will give you tonight. How do you address those skeptics?
Well, the skeptics and all the people have a little bit of... Let me do this again.
Oh, it's live, pal.
Sorry.
When this man walks in that ring tonight and walks out with that belt, I will have, in fact, bought the title because...
And I'm sorry, apparently I'm had this on loop track, which I didn't mean to. But yeah, as you can hear, sometimes when you go live, you have those moments of brain farts, and we all experience that. Unfortunately, Sid shows that pro wrestlers are human and can make mistakes too. I kind of want to do another one that was really funny right off the bat too. It was when he had his final stunt in WCW, and he was getting ready to. It was kind of a angle where he's trying to outsmart the entire NWO, and unfortunately, he didn't catch himself in time. He was going, as Bob Backlund would say, one has a 93-mile-an-hour mouth for that 3-mile-an-hour brain. And I'm not saying Sid Vicious's brain was like slow or his mentality was slow. He just got caught in the moment. But let's go to my number 9 moment of Sid Vicious.
But you know and I know that you're only half the man that I am. And I have half the brain that you do.
And yeah, as you can see, we're all human and we make mistakes and get those thoughts a little intermixed there. Unfortunately, he started out strong, but then kind of had that bad moment right there at the end. So the thing I do have to say was pretty memorable too was the way Scott Hall and Kevin Nash caught it right away and were caught on camera laughing at the promo. And unfortunately, again, we all have those moments. Now going on to a little bit more serious nature of the wrestling business, Sid also proved that no matter how big and how bad you can be, injuries can come and affect you big time. For those who really remember this back in the day, Sid's career-threatening injury happened with a match with Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner on an episode of WCW Nitro, and unfortunately, he tried to take a move off the middle rope, and the landing was not so awesome. And I'm going to go ahead and play this as my number 8 moment for Sid Vicious.
Watching the mystery opponent come in. Now, Sid Vicious up on top.
Oh, that is so difficult.
Look at the left foot.
That is so difficult to watch. We've seen it already. Oh,
another angle.
Already so many times, and it's still just so...
Once again, isolated.
Oh.
The foot. Obviously, the compound fracture.
As you could hear, Tony Schiavone was trying to detail the injury. Sid came down, landed wrong on his foot, and unfortunately, not only snapped but broke his leg. And it was a very gruesome sight back then because, with the technology we have today, usually there's such a delay that it usually is caught and won't be shown. But this was definitely back then. You got to remember, this was the late 90s. Well, right as 99 transitioning into 2000. You didn't see that very often. And unfortunately, it was pretty graphic for us back then. These days, probably not so much. But outside of injuries and goofy promos, why don't we go ahead and transition to a little more serious side of Sid Vicious? And we're actually going to start with one that was very in the Legends tale between him and many known as Flying Brian Pillman, the father of Flying Brian Pillman Jr., known as Lexus King in WWE's NXT. Flying Brian and Sid were definitely no strangers to each other outside the ring, but inside the ring, Sid wanted to kind of make sure he said his piece. And we're going to go into a WCW War Games match between the Four Horsemen and the other team led by Flying Brian Pillman, who also had Sting and I believe the Steiner brothers at that time. I can't remember. But yeah, why don't we go right into this soundbite here?
Tell you what, Big Sid's got a hold of Big Bryan here, like you said. I don't know what he's going for. Into the top of the cage. Into the top of the cage.
Into the top of the cage here.
Look at this. Jimbo, look over here.
Vicious.
Sid Vicious. Oh,
Jesus. Oh, my goodness. Right on that shoulder. Right on that
He's
shoulder.
out. He's out, baby. He's out. He's out on his feet right over here. Not again. Not again, Jimbo. Not again. Not again. Not again.
Oh, good
Man.
gosh.
Man.
Pillman is out.
He's out.
Pillman is
Look
out.
at Vicious. Look at the face of Sid Vicious.
Vicious likes it. Flying Brian is unconscious.
That was a very brutal way to send a message to Flying Brian Pillman. Of course, again, mentioning that Flying Brian Pillman and Sid Vicious did not have some awesome moments outside the ring. Unfortunately, when I was going through and reading through the archives, come to find out later, Sid did actually do this on purpose to Flying Brian. And I know this is kind of a weird thing to have in my top moments for Sid, but this just goes to show that, sometimes emotions can play really well into telling the story in the ring. And this definitely showed that Sid had a vicious side to him and it was very believable. So if you fuck with Sid, you're probably going to get more than you can bargain for. But shortly after the War Games with the Horsemen and whatnot, it was known that Sid apparently was not having any kind of re-signing with WCW. He then moves on from the WCW and goes on to the World Wrestling Federation, today known obviously as the World Wrestling Entertainment. But Sid made a very big impact going in as a face, being a special guest referee between a tag team match of Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior, who ends up being fired that night after the match, taking on the team of Sergeant Slaughter, Colonel Mustafa, and I want to say, their manager's name was General Aknon or something. I can never remember that guy's name. But we then see Hogan and Sid Justice form an alliance. I'm not sure how we went about giving Sid the last name Justice for this, but he played the role for a little bit. Unfortunately, like many other stories, you're going to see alliances also split up. And this was when I think many people were starting to kind of starting to feel the need to turn on Hogan a little bit. I believe that actually started with Jake the Snake Roberts with Hogan, but this was another moment where fans were getting a little more behind Sid, because as we watched the build up to the Royal Rumble in 1992, I believe, the final four men in the ring, I believe, were Macho Man Randy Savage, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, and Sid Justice. And keep in mind, Royal Rumble 1992 was for the vacated WWF World Heavyweight Championship, as there was a bunch of shenanigans going on between a title switch with Hulk Hogan and The Undertaker, stemming from the 1991 Survivor Series, and then the one night in Texas where Hogan regained the championship back from The Undertaker. President Jack Tunney vacates the championship. The winner of the 1992 Rumble ends up being the new WWF champion. And this is a mark where many people started seeing that Sid is a very much serious character here. And let's kind of go right into where everything kind of started, conflict with Hulk Hogan and Sid Vicious. or back then known as Sid Justice.
Look at Justice just watching. Flair once again hooking that bottom rope and looking from behind. Oh, Justice got rid of Hulk.
And if you heard right there at the tail end of that clip, you heard the fans cheering. And again, it was getting to a point where maybe Hulk Hogan's, I would say maybe Hulk Hogan's face persona was starting to get a little stale and people wanted to see a change. And Sid was the one that, Sid was the one willing to take the bullet. Now, the one thing I have to say is this led up to a WrestleMania match. It was actually one of the co-main events for WrestleMania 8. And what really started all this beef between Sid and Hogan was when President Jack Tunney, WWF President Jack Tunney, then announced that Hulk Hogan was going to eventually be the challenger for Ric Flair's WWF Championship at WrestleMania 8. Sid Justice took exception to it. And then it apparently ended up getting to the point now where I guess Sid Justice threw a big enough fit. We had a whole different way of looking at things. They then decided to change the card where WWF champion Ric Flair now had a new challenger in Macho Man Randy Savage, which I thought was kind of weird because really, if anybody, in my opinion, deserved to have that match with Ric Flair, it should have been Sid Justice because obviously he was the last man to be eliminated in that match. But due to Hogan pulling him out, I guess maybe that's where things got conflicted. So, but again, there was also a new precedent, a new, I guess you can say, accolade to add to Sid's career, because when they hit their WrestleMania main event match at WrestleMania 8, believe it or not, Hogan found out maybe he wasn't so immortal. It was so hard, but very rare to see. But this was the first time anybody has kicked out of Hulk Hogan's undefeated leg drop finisher. Sid Vicious was the one, or Sid Justice was the first person to ever kick out from a Hulk Hogan leg drop finisher. And a lot of it was due to some botching between, I guess, Papa Shango and I don't know. I keep hearing there's also some involvement with the Warrior not being on cue backstage either. So, but let's go to this soundbite where it was the biggest shocker in the world at the time. Sid Justice being the first person to ever kick out a Hulk Hogan's leg drop.
Looking to drop the leg. He did. It's all over. No.
And you could hear the brain just being there, anticipating someone actually kicking out a Hogan's leg drop back then, because everybody knew the story between Bobby the Brain Heenan and Hulk Hogan. He would always be excited if somebody kind of conflicted with Hogan's momentum. But later on, Sid ends up having a little bit of a brief stunt going back to WCW, having a tag team match with Big Van Vader, also known as Vader, where they were known as the team as the master of the power bombs, taking on the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, and Sting. And again, you know, Sid didn't have a very long run there at WCW on his second run. He ends up going back to the WWF eventually. Only this time he was introduced as Shawn Michaels' bodyguard. And come WrestleMania, I want to say it was WrestleMania 11, I believe, where the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels had won the Royal Rumble just before that WrestleMania and earned his shot for the WWF Championship. And at the time, the champion was his, of course, best friend, Kevin Nash, known as Diesel. Unfortunately, Shawn was not able to capture the championship and also found a way to kind of, um, throw Sid under the bus in a way as for not winning that championship. So the next night after WrestleMania, we see Shawn trying to, in a way, excuse Sid for a rematch that was issued by Big Daddy Cool Diesel. And here's the reaction to Sid trying to be given the night off.
And I certainly don't need a bodyguard to cause the referee to turn his ankle and cost me the World Wrestling Federation Championship. So, as far as the rematch is concerned, Big Sid, I'm going to do you a favor, big man. In this rematch, I'm giving you the night off. Let me tell you something, you stupid little pute.
Uh-oh.
As we stand here, and as days have gone by, I get the feeling you would believe these things that you're saying.
Wait a minute, we're going to have to take a break. I knew it. Just cool off a moment, please.
No, you really believe these things? And I'm going to tell you something, boy. You don't give me the night off. You don't give me nothing but respect. And if you don't,
we're in trouble. We got to take a break. We'll be back.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. Unbelievable what has happened during the break. You won't believe what happened.
I can't believe it. I knew this guy was going to flip sooner or later. He's laid Shawn Michaels out. What's going on here?
Sid has snapped. He's Sid has snapped.
And as you heard in that clip, there was a break in between the end of Sid talking and as you heard it come back from the commercial break, Big Daddy Cool Diesel came in to save Shawn from any further attack from Sycho Sid. And that was right as Sycho Sid's persona started for the WWF back then. Sid would then go on to challenge Big Daddy Cool Diesel for the WWF Championship at an In Your House. And unfortunately for Sid, he was not able to accomplish that feat. So he kind of carried on a little bit longer for his WWF career. And that was my number 4 moment, I believe, in my top 10 moments for Sid. However, to continue the storyline, this is weird. So Sid takes a little break. And originally, there was supposed to be a 6-man tag at an In Your House that involved, I believe, Vader, Yokozuna, and Owen Hart, or it may have been Vader, British Bulldog, and Owen Hart taking on the team of the Ultimate Warrior, Shawn Michaels, and Ahmed Johnson. And again, the Warrior having some more shenanigans with Vince outside the wrestling business, or inside the wrestling business, as you can say. It led to the Warrior again being let go. So the weird part is Shawn and Ahmed tell Jim Cornette and the faction being of, I believe, Vader or Yokozuna and Owen Hart and the Bulldog, their new partner ended up being Sycho Sid. And what's really weird is what led to the story of Shawn bringing back Sid after, they just had their feud not too long ago. But lo and behold, it does happen. And we go into my number 3 moment, where this is the first time where it led to Sid's WWF championship win. The story somehow ended up being Sycho Sid became the number 1 contender for Shawn Michaels' WWF championship. And that match took place at the 1996 Survivor Series. And we're going to play a little soundbite here of right toward the tail end of Sid winning this championship.
And Shawn Michaels thrown back into the ring.
Shawn Michaels struck in the back of the head by the camera.
And Sid with an opportunity here to finish it. Sid just may finish it.
If Sid hits it, it's over. We got a new champion.
I can't believe it.
Yeah. Now listening to that clip, it was interesting to see how well that played out. Jose Lothario being Shawn Michaels' trainer, kind of like the Mickey to Rocky, in the Rocky series. But this was to kind of more or less show the Psycho in Sycho Sid back then. He was willing to do whatever it takes and take whatever measures. And we saw that Sycho Sid struck Jose Lothario off the mat by using one of the ring cameras, or one of the cameras from the cameraman. But we also see him with the referee down. We see Sycho Sid go back outside while Shawn Michaels is trying to, aid his mentor. And we see Sycho Sid grab the camera off the mat and strikes Shawn Michaels in the back, throws him back in the ring. Powerbomb 1, 2, 3, as you heard. Sycho Sid enters his first WWF championship reign. And I believe that was his very first major world championship ever in the big leagues. But we're going to go on to something that this probably should be my number one, really, as far as Sycho Sid winning the championship. And I know I'm kind of going all over the place with my orders here. I would say this would have probably been my number 2 right here. Sid ends up losing the championship back to Shawn Michaels at Royal Rumble. And then, unfortunately, the Heartbreak Kid, who, I don't know, many people claim it's a myth. Some say it's the truth. Shawn Michaels ends up suffering an injury where he was not going to be able to defend his WWF championship. I believe the call was to have Bret Hart end up wrestling Shawn Michaels, but we saw kind of a weird ending to the Royal Rumble in that year, where the final 4, I believe, was Bret Hart, The Undertaker, crap. I cannot remember the other 2. And in that fatal 4-way, I believe Stone Cold, The Undertaker, Bret Hart, and it really bugs me that I can't remember that 4th now. I'm sure somebody will send it to me in a DM or on email. Bret Hart ends up winning this elimination fatal 4-way to win the vacated WWF championship. But then the next night, he has to defend it against Sycho Sid, which we all were a little baffled by. But why don't we go into that soundbite where Sid captures the WWF championship for the second time in his career.
Look at Sid! Look at Sid! Look at the power of Sycho Sid! Look at this! No one has ever broken the sharpshooter! Look at this! Look at Austin! Those Austin's got a chair! Oh! Austin Bret Hart in the head with a chair, my God! What? Austin hit Bret Hart right in the face with that steel chair! I don't think the ref saw it! He was down in Sid's face! I don't think Sid even realized that Austin just gave him an assist. Oh, no. Oh, Sid knows this. He just escaped the sharpshooter, and now he's delivering the powerbomb. Powerbomb! 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 Yeah! Sid has done it! Sycho Sid is once again the WWF champion! Unbelievable!
First off, I have to say how hilarious it was because of the kind of the storytelling between Bret the Hitman Hart and Jerry the King Lawler. Obviously, in ring they didn't like each other, but I believe they still respected one another. I'm not sure how they are on a personal level, but back then the kind of thing to note was, I believe to this day, Psycho Sid was, or Sid Vicious, however you want to remember him by, was the only person to defeat both Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart for a world championship. And that's something not many people can really say. Um, but moving on, we're going to go to my last top moment of Sid. Is we recalled earlier in this episode, Sid had quite the beef with the NWO in the WCW, his last run at WCW. And obviously his promo skills didn't speak volume, but at the tail end, when he finished the story, we all knew where that played. This was Sid taking on Kevin Nash for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship, with only one catch, though. He was not allowed to use the power bomb. Use the power bomb as a in that match whatsoever. So let's kind of listen to this sound clip and let's just kind of see a different side of Sid here.
Sid Vicious.
He's never looked better, has he?
Uh-oh. Here comes the U.S. champ, Jeff Jarrett. Remember, the power bomb here has been outlawed. And Jarrett gets hammered. Nash.
Name that tune.
Gets rocked. Sid goes down. What's he doing here?
What happened to Sid? I think he may be playing possum, guys.
Maybe
he just lured him in.
I understand. I understand what's going on. You see the guitar. Sid's making the referee believe he got hit with the guitar. What a smart move this was by Sid Vicious.
He's a smart man, and he's on his way to the championship of the world.
He's going to cover Kevin Nash. 1, 2, 3.
What a great move by Sid. He outsmarted the NWO.
He outsmarted WCW. He outsmarted the industry, guys.
So anybody who kind of thought maybe the same thing I did, this was kind of more Eddie Guerrero-ish in a way, to finish a match, to outsmart away from cheating but still winning the match. And however Sid got that accomplishment in his accolades there for winning world championships in two of the major brands back then, both the WWF and the WCW. But also, not very often you heard how Sid outsmarted an entire faction, and that's what he did. He definitely outsmarted the NWO's corruption of taking control of WCW back in that late 90s there. But I'm kind of curious as to hearing what you all think on, or hearing your top moments or favorite moments or most cherished moments from the career of Sid Vicious, Psycho Sid, or Sid Justice. It was really a kind of a honor to see the way Sid has the way Sid's career evolved, even though it wasn't very long for, well, I should say he didn't have very lengthy tenures, much like The Undertaker, Sting, Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Hulk Hogan, John Cena. But he still had a career where he could make an impact and make you believe that he was a force to be reckoned with and not to be messed with. But with that being said, feel free to send me, I'm going to throw it up here. Feel free to send me a follow there on the X app at wfincitepod. Or you can follow my other folks there. If you're seeing this on our YouTube channel, you can see it right there displayed. Feel free to give those folks a great fine follow as well. This will be on our platforms here very shortly after I'm done recording. But again, I'm curious to hear any of your favorite moments of Sycho Sid or Sid Vicious. And with that being said, we're going to end this on a good note with Sid's most recognizable line. And we will be back again on the X Space. If you go follow Carlos at C to the LOS 77, he will be on Tuesday and Thursday nights on a space alongside with Stampede. You can follow him at David David Rober 77 or sorry 7174. And we will be back live again the following Sunday on Sunday Takedown. And that, without any further ado, thank you, Sid, for the wonderful memories you provided us wrestling fans, and Godspeed.
Why? Because I am the master and I am the ruler.